Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and as always, welcome back to yet another History of video, but today with a bit of a twist from us tackling the norm, as we once again return and delve back into the world of Tekken. And I thought that what better way to celebrate the release of Season 2 than by covering its newest addition to the roster, the beautiful Scarlet Lightning, and my personal favourite femme fatale in the series, Anna Williams. Now Anna is a truly underrated gem amongst the roster, as she's largely overshadowed by her big sister, Nina Williams. However, Anna is not one to be outclassed by her sister in both skills and looks, with the two sharing a burning rivalry that dates as far back as their childhood. But beneath the beautiful facade and sex appeal of Anna Williams is a story of trauma, envy, betrayal, and sisterhood. So for us to truly understand the origins and background of Anna, we must go back to the days of her childhood to understand how exactly did she become one of the world's most infamous assassins. But just before we do start everyone, quick reminder as always that if you like what we do here and wish to see more, please don't forget to subscribe to stick around, as well as to give this video a thumbs up. It's a small thing, but it really helps support the channel in the YouTube algorithm, especially if you want to see some more Tekken content on the channel. But anyway, with that said and out the way, let's delve right into things. Now Anna is of Irish descent, being the youngest child of the Williams household, with Nina older by 2 years. But it would truly be the foundation laid forth by their parents that would forge them into who they are today, as their father, Richard Williams, was a former IRA assassin, and their mother was a British Aikido champion. Thus, with the prestige the Williams household held, there was naturally some very high expectations placed upon their shoulders, especially in the eyes of their father. You see, Richard really wasn't interested in being much of a father figure to Anna or Nina. Instead, his heart was set on forging the two into the next age of assassins, something that Nina didn't just excel in, but thrived in. Having it so, Richard favoured Nina over Anna, and it would be through this favouritism where this rift and bitterness would be sown, because in her father's eyes, Anna was simply deemed as the runt of the litter, and while she undoubtedly did show talent, skill, and proficiency in her training, it was always eclipsed by Nina. Because of this, Anna would try to find other ways to gain her father's love and admiration, even having become a fantastic cook in order to impress him. Yet, such efforts were in vain and would be swept aside, as in his eyes, such talents were deemed as worthless, adding nothing to the family business. And I think what does actually make this that much more heartbreaking isn't just that resentment, but the fact that Harada, Tekken's leading director and writer, has come out and confirmed that Nina is actually the best cook in the series, even beating the laws that do own their own restaurant. So no matter how hard she tried to impress her father, it was truly never enough and meant nothing in his eyes. And it really didn't help that growing up, Nina was actually quite maliciously cruel towards Anna. Although it isn't very well documented, it has been said that from a very young age, Nina was known for bullying Anna whenever the opportunity may present itself, causing the two to fight quite often, but with Nina always as the victor. In fact, the only time the two weren't at each other's throats would be as children watching the television show Tom and Jerry together. And this is what makes their relationship so unique and complicated, as this sort of time spent together would naturally sow the seeds of love between the two. Eventually, as the decades passed by, both Williams sisters became fierce assassins in their own right. And this is where their rivalry would truly come to blossom, especially by the time of the first of the King of Iron Fist tournaments was announced. Now, coming into Tekken 1, Anna would be in a really weird place to start off the series, because while she is playable, it would be as an unlockable character, someone only accessible once you clear the arcade mode with Nina Williams. And during this game's story, it is effectively Nina who spearheads the story for the Williams family, assigned the mission of taking out the tournament host Heihachi Mishima, and participating in the King of the Iron Fist tournament in order to do so. Even despite the circumstances surrounding her accessibility, she does technically appear during the tournament, but only as a sub-boss to Nina, with it being believed that she participated in it to either 1. Take her contract, or 2. Best her in combat. It is simply something that does progress their feud moving forward. And whilst Nina isn't successful in taking out Heihachi, he would still wind up being defeated by his own son, Kazuya, whom would then take over their business, the Mishima Zaibatsu. Now, following the events of the tournament, in Nina's arcade ladder ending, we do see the two interact, but not in the favor of Anna, with the younger sister accusing Nina of stealing her shoes, only for her to play coy before slapping Anna, causing her to burst into tears with Nina smirking, holding the shoe. Now, 2 years would pass in between the events of Tekken 1 to 2, and a lot would go down in the William household during this time, with Anna often having been on the receiving end of many of Nina's harsh pranks, infamously having taken a picture of her topless to embarrass her. But the biggest impact that the family would suffer from would be the death of Richard Williams. And whilst he had treated Anna poorly, and even she herself held him in pretty high disdain, she would mourn his loss, and at the very least have a modicum of respect for her father, placing flowers on his grave on a regular basis, and visiting him quite often once he passed. Of course, this would all lead to an eventual confrontation with Nina, where for the first time since their childhood, they would share moments of peace out of respect for their father. But this now does all lead up into the events of Tekken 2. And during this time period, Anna would actually be hired by the Zaibotsu to protect Kazuya Mishima, being one of his personal bodyguards to fend off any assassination attempts. And they were actually lucky to hire her, as it does look like Nina would be assigned the mission of taking him out. Although this fight and interaction all occurs off screen, it is believed and implied that once the two clashed, it was Anna that gained the upper hand against her sister. And you'd think after the years of torment that this would be a moment of reprieve, one of relief. Yet instead, all she found was sorrow. You see, with Nina's defeat, she would be taken and forcibly put into Dr. Boskonovich's cryonic experiments, a process where he planned to freeze the assassin for an undisclosed amount of time. And after the loss of her father, and seeing what would become of her sister, Anna would also volunteer for the program, simply unable to live in a world without her sibling. The two would be cryogenically frozen together up until the events of Tekken 3. Now, Tekken 3 in itself takes place 19 years later, so a considerable amount of time does pass until they're awoken from their slumber. But all was not well upon their awakening, as whilst physically they looked well and neither had aged a day, Nina was effectively mind-wiped of all of her memories and training, stripped of the essence of what made Nina Williams Nina Williams. And here, Anna kind of saw an opportunity to give Nina a new life, one of normality where she didn't have to worry about being an assassin, and also create a world where she'd finally have a sister. But deep down inside Anna, she also deeply wished to rekindle their rivalry, making the circumstances surrounding her amnesia very conflicting for her, as she really didn't know what was the right thing to do. First, due to the events at hand, the two are largely absent during the King of the Iron Fist Tournament 3, with Anna nursing and taking care of her sister, before finally reaching out to Dr. Boskonovich in order to restore Nina's memories. And at first, the procedure does look to be a failure, with Nina still lost of her own identity. In time though, this would not be an issue, as when Nina was taken to their father's grave, her memories would immediately return, with her striking down Anna, chastising her for simply sitting idly by, as she was robbed of her memories and identity. But interestingly so, once she walked away, Anna can be seen smirking to herself, glad to see her sister had returned. Even so, this slap did leave a bit of a mark on Anna, because for a while, she would actually lead a normal life, hanging up her guns during the events of Tekken 4. That is until one day where she would receive a call from Nina, saying that the two should meet. And whilst on the surface this may seem like a normal conversation, to Anna, she knew what this really meant. A duel between the two to determine who was the better Williams sister. So if the fire in her chest reignited, the two would wage a war against each other that lasted for days, with gunfire and all sorts of artillery being fired on both sides, with neither landing a decisive hit. With the two running out of ammunition, the sisters then decided that in order to determine a true winner, it would have to be at the grandest stage of it all, the 5th King of Iron Fist tournament, something both sides would agree to and then participate in. Now, in terms of the finer details, canonically, it's unknown how far Anna made it into the tournament, or whom she actually faced off against, as she does have quite a few interludes with a number of different characters in game, from Li Chaolong to Marduk, and finally her own sister. The only thing that we know for certain though, is that Nina would be victorious over her sister, and this was a really bitter pill for Anna to swallow, because while she lost fair and square, in the aftermath of Tekken 5, she would actually actively go out her way to hunt her sister down, wanting revenge for her embarrassing loss. Which now takes us onto the events of Tekken 6. And it's during this installment where Anna would learn the truth of Nina's whereabouts. That she was now the right hand and personal guard of Jin Kazama, whom at the time had assumed control of the Mishima Zaibatsu, having waged an international war against the world. And not one to be outdone by her sister, Anna would join the opposing side, G Corporation, led by none other than Kazuya Mishima. Once the fate of the world was on the line, in Anna's mind, nothing meant more to her than to outdo her sister. That is, until she met someone very special. Although not given a name, it would be during this time where Anna met a soldier, and the two slowly kindled a relationship together. And with the pair both having worked for G Corporation, it made it incredibly easy for the two to see each other. Thus, on paper, it kind of was a match made in heaven, being able to balance both her professional and personal life together, which then all leads into the game's main story mode, the scenario campaign. And here, Anna acts as a fleeting antagonist of sorts, battling against the Mishima Zaibatsu, but also acting against Lars' rebellious Tekken force, Yggdrasil. Here she would battle both Lars and Alyssa on 2 separate occasions, but did fail in both attempts. She would make her final appearance at the tail end of the game's story mode, where she can be seen assisting Kazuya during his fight with Lars, using a smoke grenade to stop the fight, and escorting him away. Now, in the aftermath of 6, Anna had grown tired and exhausted of the wars and battles, and finally thought it was time to settle for a quiet life. A happy one with her boyfriend, with the two now having gotten engaged. For the first time in Anna's life, she truly felt complete, a sense of absolution and relief. But this would all quickly fall into disarray. On their wedding day, just before the ceremony could begin, Anna was beyond distressed. Not just because of the wedding itself, but the wedding dress that she had bought was completely gone, and she understandably couldn't go through the ceremony without it. And as if her day couldn't get any worse, she could hear gunshots from the main hall, finding her to-be husband dead on the floor, killed by an unknown assailant. And as she drew her eyes towards the exit to pinpoint who was responsible, she saw a woman wearing her dress. It was Nina. She had taken her dress and walked down the aisle, hiding her appearance so she could kill Anna's fiancé point blank. And these actions completely broke Anna, not only rekindling their sibling rivalry, but sending her down a dark and bloody path of vengeance. It would only be during this pursuit and hunt of Nina where she learned of her sister's real intentions and actions. Because whilst typically on the surface, this could be seen as one of Nina's typical villainous acts, this was actually something done so more out of love than bitterness. In reality, Nina was actually quite pleased and happy for Anna's own happiness, but not the person whom she'd fallen in love with. By digging into his past and doing a background check, Nina learned that the man she'd fallen in love with had extremely strong ties to the Italian mafia, and had Anna taken his hand in marriage, she would have effectively become a part of their criminal organization. Of course, this was all information and something she learnt following the wedding, and near immediately it turned her opinion of her fiancé extremely sour, seeing him as nothing more than a deceptive scumbag. So, in a way, she was actually grateful for Nina, whether it had been out of personal love or business. She was happy that her sister was looking out for her. But of course, such optimism would quickly implode, as once she learnt that Nina had taken her former position at G Corporation, Anna was pissed. So, seeing this as an opportunity and way of evening up the odds, Anna would become an assassin once more, rehauling her Aikido moveset into something completely new and unique. Something that would complement her very new weapon of choice, a custom-made rocket launcher called Lucky Tom. Of course, a homage to both hers and Nina's favourite childhood show, Tom and Jerry. So going into the events of Tekken 8, Anna does look to hunt down her sister once more, to both defeat her and humiliate her. So with that said, this has been it for the history of Anna Williams for Tekken 8. And I do hope you have enjoyed this and learnt more by doing so. I really enjoyed covering Anna Williams, because while she's mostly known for her beauty and sex appeal, she really is quite a tragic figure in the series, one that's torn between sisterhood and familial strife. So I do hope this has allowed you to view this character in a different light, and see how deeply borrowed this sisterly rivalry is. Thus, with all of that said and everything covered here, what are your thoughts on the return of Anna Williams to Tekken 8? What do you think of her new design? What do you believe is next for the character? And do you think she'll finally get the upper hand against Nina here? Please do comment down below, as I'd love to hear what you have to say. And also, once again, quick reminder that if you do want to see more Tekken content here, please let me know down in the comments below, as I am completely open to it, but I definitely need to hear and see some of your reception. Until then though everyone, that's been it for me. So as always, stay strong, stay well, and I'll catch you in the next one.